David, how do you do it? And how does the mental ability of these athletes impact their physical ability?
There's something more than just skill set. Everybody at the highest level, think of any profession, they're all talented. They're all very gifted. So like I had just grown up doing, I was trying to figure out that 1% advantage. Just like in working, you can only have a certain amount of energy and attention. So the 22 hours, the recovery, the nutrition, the sleep, all of that went into it. Total optimizations. The key point is it's between the ears. It's the 6 inches between your ears that makes all the difference at the highest level. It makes all the difference in anyone's life. But if you're trying to perform at the highest level, your full capability, your full potential, who God's created you to be, it's the mindset that ultimately will get you to the results. The results are your vision. The results is the who you want to be in the future. It's totally the mindset.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick. Listen in, Spartans, because I have a special treat in store for you today. On the line, all the way from the Golden State, a man on a mission to help CEOs and professional athletes have breakthrough moments. New Wall Street Journal best-selling author and mindset and mental skills specialist, David Nurse. Welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, Josh, I love the intro. I just had to let that sink in for a second when you said Wall Street Journal bestseller. You know what? I would say a large part of that is thanks to you. I don't know if listeners know this, but when we first meet, mutual friend, we got to give a shout out to the legend Jordan Montgomery, says, hey, you got to meet my guy, Josh. He is the man. He is the mayor of Wisconsin. We get on the phone conversation. We're just vibing back and forth. And they go, hey, let me get 100 books. And from there, Wall Street Journal happens, and it came down to the wire. So when people say like every vote counts in the book world, every book does count. So I'm going to say it, Josh, it's Wall Street Journal with a little asterisk, and the asterisk has your name by it.
Awesome. So when next time I get introduced at a speaking event or something like that, I'm going to put underneath there, help David Nurse become Wall Street Journal. That's going to be part of my bio going forward. Thank you.
And your speaking fee is going to plummet down.
Well, I don't know about that because you're rocking it right now. You're on fire. So super excited to have you on the show. In fact, I'm double excited because this is a bit of a pre-show for us, right? Because I'm hosting an exclusive event here at Five Bridges Farm next week. It's going to be next month. We're recording this next month, but then when this episode releases, it's going to be later that week. And David has agreed to pour into my fellow Arete brothers and sisters there. So we're super excited to have you speak to them, pour into them, tell us about the book more. So today, while we're on the topic, got to say congrats again.
Thanks,
and, all right, let's get in. Oh, by the way, I have his books. This pretty face right here. I have his books for those of us watching on YouTube today, sitting right here. What I do love about your cover, though, I got to say this, whoever designed it, because I don't know that you can see this on here. So the book's called Do It, but really subtly, it's Don't Quit as well. When I first got it, because I couldn't see it when I was looking at it on Amazon, but when you sent the books to me, I got to see this. I was like, damn, that's cool.
You know why that is? So number one, the person who designed the cover was my wife. That's her idea. She had the idea for to put my picture on it as well. She had a lot of the ideas of the creative ideas for the concepts and the structure of the book itself. So a lot of what I do is I just talk, and my wife is the creative one in the family. But the reason that we did that is the don't quit and do it, because people are motivated in two different ways. They're either motivated by a positive motivation, go do it, yeah, go do it, and get fired up, or they're motivated from the avoidance of failure, that don't quit. Oh, I can't quit. I got to keep doing it because I can't quit. So you take it either way. People are, as we will go into depth, and I'm sure on this episode, as people are either one of two types in so many different scenarios. It's like the people that are the knowers. They're listening to this podcast right now. They're watching on YouTube. They're reading books, and then they don't do anything with it. Or there's the doers, the ones that will actually take knowledge and go do. It's a huge, huge difference in those. And there's a huge difference in a lot of things in the way people are in life, and we can dive more into that. But that's the background behind the cover and the premise of it.
I love it. All right. We definitely will dive into that a little bit more, and we'll spend more time on the book. But I need to introduce you to the listeners that may not know you. David works with a variety of clientele, but has secured a really cool niche spot in the market. He transforms how NBA stars perform on the court by transforming the performance of their minds. So, David, how do you do it, and how does the mental ability of these athletes impact their physical ability?
Yeah, so it all started with, I played basketball and got to play like a lick of professional basketball overseas, more like the Will Ferrell semi-pro than it was actual professional basketball, if we're going to be completely honest. But my whole life was how do I gain the extra added advantage? I wasn't born with height. I wasn't born with crazy athleticism. I just had to develop it, and I had to figure it out on my own. So I used that through a long journey of running my own basketball camps and training people, anybody at a local YMCA or 7th grade girls team in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, to be able to refine my craft to eventually I get called on by the Brooklyn Nets. Years and years, trust me, this did not happen overnight. So anybody that thinks overnight success happens, it will not, it never exists. And then I'm coaching NBA players with the Nets, and we can go in, like, these are all stories in themselves, but I'll preface it right now of getting fired from the Nets after thinking I was in years and years pouring into what I wanted to be as my dream job. Had great success there when I was there, went from 28 to second in three-point shooting percentage. I was the shooting coach, the development coach, getting all these promises from the GM, getting all this New York NBA media, hot up-and-coming young coach, he's the next. And then a new head coach comes in and I'm fired. So a big part of my life is the doors that close are actually opportunities for so many more doors to open. My mom had said it, I'm kind of going backwards in my story here, but my mom had said it one time when I was kicked back on the recliner chair after I'd been cut from playing professionally overseas, when I had zero money to my name, when I had zero ambition or anything going for me. She said when she was doing dishes, I was on the recliner, she said, David, when one door closes, 4 open in an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean. And it caught me off guard because I was like, I thought it was always one door. If a door closes, then I have to wait for another door to open. But the whole premise of what she was saying in my life to this point has been, if a door closes, that's God's way of saying, I got so much more for you, David, but you got to go get it. I'm not just going to let you sit back. You got to go take action. Go do it. These 4 doors opening. So I get into with the Nets, get fired. I come out to Los Angeles. I'm consulting for a friend of mine coached UCLA. So I'm consulting for them for their future NBA players and some agents around. They see the work. They bring me in. Now I'm working with this agent named Casey Wasserman, who has all these big NBA players, the Russell Westbrooks, the Klay Thomases, the Klay Thompsons, the Domantas Sabonises, all these all-stars. And I'm thinking, you know what? There's something more than just skill set. Everybody at the highest level, think of any profession, they're all talented. They're all very gifted. So like I had just grown up doing, I was trying to figure out that 1% advantage. How can they take that next step? And I realized, okay, what do they do in the 22 hours they're off the court? You can only be physically on court for about 2 hours maximum capacity. Just like in working, you can only have a certain amount of energy and attention, time management. So the 22 hours, the recovery, the nutrition, the sleep, all of that went into a total optimization. So I became a nut for all these and made relationships and went to different events to learn all this type of stuff. So now I'd taken a next step. But Josh, the key point is it's between the ears. It's the 6 inches between your ears that makes all the difference at the highest level. It makes all the difference in anyone's life. But if you're trying to perform at the highest level, your full capability, your full potential, who God's created you to be, it's the mindset. It's totally the mindset. And that's where I went down just a deep hole of, studying from the best, the George Mumfords, the Michael Gervais, and just being able to pour into so many players and help them on their mindset, which has gone on to help. So I think it's about 29 NBA All-Star appearances to date.
That's awesome. So highly, highly successful because of the info that you've soaked in and been able to distill down and be able to give these high functioning athletes. One of the things you said that stuck out to me is that action piece. The door closes, but you got to go and act. I think there a lot of times, especially Christians, that, true believers sit there and go, well, I'll just, God's going to lead, right? So I'm going to wait for God's direction. But that's not actually what the word says. The word says go left or go right. I will guide the way. But it's saying go left or go right. It's saying to take action. And so that's what I love. That stuck out to me as you said that.
Josh, I love that. And I think that's so important for people to hear, because I hear that a lot too. Well, I'm just going to wait until, God's going to tell me. I'm going to wait. And yeah, there's greatness to be found in the times when Jesus went out in solitude and was just with himself and with God, was able to recharge and be closer to God. But it also says, like, hey, you have to take action. What's the saying? It's pray like everything depends on God and work like everything depends on you. I think that's a good mantra to have. He wants us to take action. And then as believers, we think, well, you know what, I don't know. It's not all about, what you're doing in the work. There's so many times in the Bible that work is such a biblical gift to have. Work is not a bad thing. Work is a gift to be able to use these gifts that we have inside of us for the benefit of others, to show them ultimately the kingdom.
No, in fact, just like you said, God endowed us each with specific gifts, and I believe infinite depth to those gifts, and it's upon us to live into them, which means act into them, not wait for a time to act. So good. So it's all about the brain science, all the mental side. So it really doesn't make any sense to go further down this path without introducing your top selling release. Do it. So before we go any further, introduce us to the life-changing power of taking action.
Yeah. So, there's this book. I'm going to give you the 40,000 foot view of it. So listeners out there can be like, okay, well, this is what it's about. And then we can dive into any of these or all of these, depending on how much time you have, the action archetypes. Now, what holds us back from taking action? So think about this right now when you're listening. I really want to go through this with the listeners. Think about where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying that you're in such a terrible position, a stuck position. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but there's something all of us want to learn on. Like Josh, we're talking beforehand, we're talking like, hey, how can I get in better shape? How can I get more energy? Like that's something we want to improve on. So in that gap of where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow is taking action. That's the bridge. So the bridge is taking action. The valley below is fear. Fear is what holds people back. Now, there's different levels of fear. There's different types of fear. Ultimately, it is fear of the uncertain. We don't take action because we are uncertain of what the results are going to be. Uncertainty. Think about it in this life we're living right now with the economy. Oh, markets are going to crash. It's going to be horrible. They're trying to build fear into you to make this uncertain, so you sit in your little room and never do anything and never disrupt the norm. That's what they want you to do. Uncertainty is debilitating. Now, back to the 40,000 foot view. The book is like Atomic Habits. Most people know Atomic Habits, where there's habits and there's tools with the habits to help you overcome these action archetypes. Meets the Enneagram. So the Enneagram is a personality test. These different 9 action archetypes are going to be awareness tests. They're not personality tests. Huge difference. Personality is who you are. That's generally who you're going to be. These awareness tests, you can definitely change. I've been every single one of these 9 archetypes at some point throughout my life. So Atomic Habits meets the Enneagram with crazy cool Malcolm Gladwell type stories of historical figures from the past who went on to change the world who you've probably never heard of before. So Malcolm Gladwell, if you know who he is, he writes these crazy, amazing stories. So each archetype has a person from history. Now, I'd never heard of hardly any of these people when I was researching them, but they came to the same stuck situation, what I call the crux, where they had the opportunity to just play it safe and nothing would have happened, or take a massive risk, and they do, obviously, and go on to change the world. So it tells their stories as well. Now, the 9 action archetypes, these are the 9 main reasons through 3 years of research, studies, surveys. These were the main ones, the fear that held people back. The first one, the Allodoxaphobic. This simply means fear of other people's opinions. Do you not take action because you're afraid of what somebody else is going to think or say? And we can go into depth on any one of these that you want. The second one is the burned. There's something from your past that has happened that is holding you back from your future. The burned. You got burnt in the past in business. You got burnt in the past in a relationship. The inopportune, not the right time. You think, well, timing isn't right. I'm just too young for this. Or a lot of people later on in life, they're like, well, I'm too old. I can't learn something new. No, just let me preface this. The brain matures in the late 20s. But the difference between maturation and learning and growing are 2 drastically different things. They don't even line up. That's not even true. So you can totally learn when you're old. So it's not the right time. As we know, God's timing is always the right timing, and God's timing is never our timing. The fourth is the blamer. This is, we are seeking validation as humans, and we don't like to say that we're wrong. So this is blaming somebody else. So if you're a leader of a company, this is, no, it's not my fault. I wasn't wrong. It was my employee's fault. Or if you're an employee and you have a boss, well, my boss didn't tell me. Or it's like, you know what? My parents didn't teach me this, or my parents aren't from money. My parents never went to college. So many excuses you can make if you want them. You're a blamer. And the thing is, there's never cross-examination with yourself when you blame. You feel better about it, but it's always an excuse holding you back. The fifth one is the test believer. Now, this is we're talking about if it's the Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs or
DISC or any of them.
Yeah, all those. You start to think, well, I'm a 7 with a wing of an 8, so that means I'm a encouraging leader. So that's what I have to be. I don't have any empathy. You're almost boxing yourself into whatever a test tells you. The one that I come to the most to share with people that really don't understand it is the introvert versus extrovert. So a lot of people always tell me, like, David, I can't do what you do. I can't talk to people. Like, I'm introverted. No, introverted and extroverted doesn't mean can you talk to somebody or not. It simply means how you recharge. Do you recharge alone or do you recharge with others? Nothing to do with can you or can't you talk to somebody. So it's an excuse. So not labeling yourself as a test believer. The 6th is the perfectionist. And this is it has to be perfect. I can't put it out there in the world until it's perfect. This is the procrastination. And there's been tons of studies done. And on average, there was this big study done in Canada with thousands of people. People will think, well, maybe I'm more creative when I procrastinate. Well, 95% of people said they were more stressed and anxious when they procrastinate. 95%, because they were perfectionists. So it's a mindset of ready, aim, fire. Sorry, ready, fire, aim.
Aim, yeah.
Taking the shot before it's perfect. The 8th one, the 7th one is the scarciest. Scarcity mindset, thinking that there's only one slice of the pie. This is where you have to hold on to it. This is where you hoard the toilet paper so nobody else can have it. This is where you try to keep everything for yourself. You don't make connections with anybody else because you want those. They're all for you because there's not enough to go around. Complete lie. The 8th is the distracted. And this one is not so much as just like you're distracted by your phone or by TV or by notifications. That's obvious. And this is the one I struggle with the most, Josh. The distracted also means where your great is, your vision, your purpose. It's the things that keep you from that. It's the shiny objects that we accept these opportunities. We don't have the power to say no. We say yes to everything. And it ultimately keeps us away from where God's created us to be. Me and you both, we get a lot of opportunities. It's like, man, that'd be great to go to that mastermind. Oh, yeah, let's do this business deal, this idea. But if it has no relevancy to our most important, our families, and what our mission is, then it's keeping us away. It's distracting.
Yeah.
And finally, the 9th is the underestimator. And this simply comes down to the mindset of the people that think, well, why me? Why should I do anything great? Well, why me? I'm just, little old me from middle of nowhere, Iowa. Why me? Or the people who think, why not me? Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be the best, whatever you want to be, fill in the blank. Why not you? Those are the 9 action archetypes.
So those are so good. I'm excited because I just, this came out and we were able to book our conversation. I haven't been able to read it yet. I'm excited to dive into those stories. One of my favorite books of all time is The Traveler's Gift, and going back and experiencing those people in history. So it kind of reminds me of that as you describe it. I'm probably going to butcher this word, but I'm going to try. The Allodoxaphobic, number 1, right? Mm-hmm. This one relates to conversations I've been having lately, the fear of others' opinions. So as you said, you are you, not what you do. Mm-hmm. How do those struggling with that archetype overcome the barrier? Because I think of all the ones you said, especially in the social media world that we live in right now, this seems to be the one that's most pressing. And you and I even talked about someone before we started recording, same thing. We're talking about like most of these keyboard haters are 300-400 pounds living in their mom's basement. But how do people that struggle with this one overcome the barrier?
That's such a good question. And this is one of the most prominent struggles for people. So I'm glad you chose this one. And yeah, you said it right. Allodoxaphobia.
All right, good.
Yeah. So in the book, there's a lot of it breaks down in the brain what's happening in the ventral striatum and the cerebral cortex. And you can actually see the synapses working in the brain. So there's brain science, there's heart science of how we are feeling, our feelings of this. So we won't go too in depth on the neuroscience-y type of stuff where I just try to act really smart, but it's just research that I did. It's not like I'm that smart. but mainly for people to understand that when someone says something or thinks of you in a way where you're taking their opinions, well, one, they're not thinking about you for very long. There's 86,400 seconds in a day. Now, they probably think of you for maximum 10 seconds, and then they're thinking about themselves or what they're eating for dinner. Most people will then spend the next 86,390 seconds thinking about what the other person thought of them, and then not doing something because somebody else said something about them. And it's so interesting, Josh. Over the past month, I've seen this play out in extremely successful singers. There's been 2 Christian singers, one Torrin Wells, who's one of the biggest singers, and he was talking about this. I was down at Lakewood Church watching him, and he was saying, he's award-winning singer, and he said a singing teacher in high school, told him he wasn't any good. And then from there on, he was always fearing other people's opinions because this teacher planted this seed probably on a day when they were very stressed out and they were just trying to take out whatever was inside of them, their hurts, and placing it upon Torrin. But then he lives high school, college, and so on, just always with that thought in the back of his mind, well, what will other people think of me? Hey, my teacher said I wasn't that good. So the understanding that when someone has an opinion of you, one, they're not even thinking about you for very long. And 2, it's usually them pressing their inner struggles upon you to make themselves feel better. Also, there's stats from surveys, studies done that 19% of people will not like you just because. You're not going to appease everybody. There's never anybody that's going to have a 100% rating. The biggest landslide in presidential history, so this is presidents, people leading the country, you think it's massive landslide. 60.2% was of the popular vote for Richard Nixon. That was the biggest win of all time. That means 39.8. 39.8. Thank you for that. Man, you math major over there, Josh. Jeez.
No, I was just in finance for a long time.
Perfect. But that many people don't approve of them. So you just have to understand, not everybody's going to like you, and that's totally cool. Be okay with that. Now, the tool there's 2 tools for this that I give. The first one just being create your own personal mantra, meaning when you step into a room, how do you want others to feel? How do you want others to feel? You're creating this kind of aura when you step into a room. I want to always bring exuberant enthusiasm and encouragement. I just kind of used all 3 E words there, but that's what I want people to feel around me. So I'm not worried what other people think, but I want other people to feel. So create your personal mantra. What is your mantra? Write this down, how you want people to feel when they're around you. The second tool is what I call be the comedian. Now, think about your favorite comedy show. Mine is The Office. I love The Office. Most people know about The Office. Michael Scott, working for this company, Dunder Mifflin, and Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he's always saying these things to just basically get himself into trouble, put his foot in his mouth, and it's hilarious, the situations that he gets in. But if you're Michael Scott, which a lot of us are in that situation, we're very stressed, we're very anxious. But if we're the viewer watching Michael Scott, what are we doing? We're laughing. It's hilarious. So the point is to stop and take yourself out of the situation that you're in. Let's say you're going through some difficult situation. Just pause for a second. And now try to take yourself out and that you're watching yourself in a comedy. And you start to laugh because it is funny, because we don't need to take ourselves so seriously. Because every difficult situation that you've been through, you've gotten through. You're going to get through the next one. Yeah, I tell people this with fear. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You're going to die. That's the worst. Okay, then you're dead. Then you don't even have to worry about it. You're dead.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to go to
Nothing to worry
jail.
about at that point.
Yeah, so what's there to worry about? So those are a couple tools and kind of just things to remember that, like, people generally, they actually don't care as much as you think they do about you.
Yep. Yeah, they're not thinking about you at all most of the time. Right. Yeah. So it's interesting that you brought up the story of Torrin Wells, because I'm having one of my masterminds reread the 4 agreements this month. And there's a story literally in there in the chapter of Be Impeccable with Your Word about a mother who grew so frustrated with her daughter's singing that she told her she had a horrible voice when in fact she had a beautiful voice. But it discouraged this little girl from ever singing again, and even so much as speaking up in class. Her mother planted a seed of poison. So it made me think, as you were given this example, I think another tool is be impeccable with your word, meaning you got to make sure that you're planting words of hope and not words of poison, because do unto others as you would want done to you. Are you making sure that you're planting those seeds of hope versus seeds of poison so that it doesn't get done to you in return?
Oh, Josh, so good. And it's what I tell people too. There's one skill that everybody is born with. It's not like some gift that somebody has that somebody else doesn't have. It is the one skill that can change the entire trajectory of somebody's life. Just like this, just like a spark. And it is the spark of encouragement. And when I'm saying this right now, I want you to think about that person that did that for you. Was it a high school coach, your parents, somebody from your childhood, a friend that just said, yeah, you can do this. You're really good. Like, even it's so funny. Josh, I was doing this podcast. It was a trio podcast with 2 really smart people, like smarter than me. And I'm kind of like, I'm pretty confident when I get in a room because I'll just talk and I don't really care what they think. But for some reason, I was just feeling, I was like, ooh, they're out dueling me here. Like, what? Oof. Uh-oh. I don't know if I belong in this room. And even after the podcast, the video recorder guy was like, dude, that was so good. I was like, yeah, all of it? He's like, no, what you said stuck with me. And it was just kind of this, like, this spark of encouragement. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this. So it is that skill, that encouragement. And think about this. That word encouragement is so powerful. Anybody can do it. And encouragement, if you break it down, the E-N, it's in. So we're planting something in somebody, from inside of us into somebody else. The middle of that word is courage. It literally is courage. It does take courage to give somebody else true encouragement. And it does take courage for somebody to accept it. That's what true courage is about, because that allows people to step out into their God-given gift, which they might have been afraid to do without that spark of encouragement. And mint, M-E-N-T, I just kind of say as a play on mint, M-I-N-T, which is your rich life, your success. If you're willing to give encouragement, if you're willing to have that courage to step out, you will live a rich life. So I think it's just so many cool things about what you had said there with encouragement.
No, I love that plant encourage in someone. It's like sometimes we need others to believe in us before we believe in ourselves. And that's the point there. In fact, I would say a lot of times.
Yeah, man, it really is. Like, it's the validation. That's why I love being around people like you or Jordan or these other people who are trying to do big things for the kingdom, because you'll say, like, I'll tell people, hey, I'm working on producing a show. And I want to do a big time show. And if I told anybody that from high school, back in Little Kearney, Missouri or Iowa, they'd be like, no way, that's never going to work. But around the people that are like yourself, they're like, yeah, go do it. Come on, man, you can do that. Obviously, you'd be great on that. It's that encouragement, it's that boost. And then people, great friends, They'll support you, yeah, but then they'll also challenge you in a healthy way. It's not like the American Idol parent who just says you're great and you actually suck. It's like, hey, I'll be like, hey, Josh, how's the book coming, man? Because I know your book is going to change so many people's lives. So I want to keep on you. I'll be like, hey, how's it coming? Just checking in. Encourage.
You just hit on the point that I've always hated about small towns. Now, before anyone that's listening gets mad about me saying that I hate small towns, there's many, many good things about small towns in rural America. Okay. Here's what David said is something that I do very much dislike and why I've always wanted to get out of a small town. When I grew up in Illinois and visited my grandparents, I always felt out of place because when you're in these small towns, there is a smaller mindedness that you just touched on is like, hey, you can't do that. Because they haven't seen it before. They haven't broken out to be like, no, actually that person from a small town actually just went on to do something really big and you broke the mold. And so you just keyed on, and I tried to, because my wife's from a small town in rural Indiana as well. And some people choose to stay there because that's what they're familiar with, but then they don't get to experience some of life's richest things, or some of the people that you and I've got to experience that are like, hell yeah, go do that. Because they've seen it and they know, or they have that instilled belief in you, and they've seen someone else do it before that probably started with less, either smarts, good looks, or intelligent, whatever it may be, talents, and they're going to pour that courage into you. But when you said that, I was like, you just keyed in on the reason I when growing up, never felt comfortability at my grandparents, visiting my grandparents, being in that town, being around those types of people. Great people, very nice people, but that limitation of the mind is what I didn't connect with.
You know what? I want to take that a step further, and I want to give people the freedom to also know this, because you're so right. And I mean, even think about Jesus when he goes back to Capernaum. Like, he just says, like, I can never come back here anymore, because they think that I am not the Son of God. Because they think, Jesus grew up here. He can't do anything great. This guy who grew up here. I think it's also the same with family. I think we think like, we have to just be so close to everybody in our family, like our extended family. No, you don't. Like, it's not on you that you were born into that family. You don't have to. You can love them. Absolutely. Love the people from your childhood. Love the people from your high school. But having to allocate your time and energy to people who are just going to be energy vampire suckers and take it out of you, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There's a family you're born with, and then a family you choose as you grow.
Bingo. And
and you're right. So many people get this guilt and shame around, you have to do this. You have to do this. No, I don't. No, I don't. So, all right, let's get back to the book. So many good things. Where do we begin? Where does our audience begin when they want to start achieving remarkable results in life and business? And this particular part I want you to touch on here, because that's a very broad question, is how do they begin to connect their heart and brain?
That is a really good question. I don't think I've ever had that question asked before. And how do you connect your heart and brain? But honestly, at the end of the day, it comes back to your intuition that you have, that it's the repetitions. So let's break this down, because this is going to help with a lot of defeating fear. And before fear comes what's called hesitation. It's that moment. It's that 0.1 seconds where you doubt yourself and you don't speak up in the boardroom, or you doubt yourself on your shot. And if you hesitate, you're going to miss. It's the difference between a Steph Curry and everybody else. Curry can miss 15 shots in a row, NBA player, phenomenal NBA player, and then he'll shoot the 16th one just like it was anything else. He doesn't hesitate.
Yes.
So it is to be able to connect your heart and your brain together, to be able to take action. First, there is preparation that occurs in this, and this is through the focus, the deep focus reps in your strength zone. So breaking it down, all right? You have your vision. Okay, who you want to be in the future. That's kind of what we're talking about through this whole thing, where you are today to where you want to get to. You have to have a vision. Like, it doesn't have to end up that way, but if you don't have something you're shooting for, then you're just treading your tires. You're not going anywhere. So what is that vision, right? Now, what are your God-given strengths? What can be the vehicle that leads you to that vision? Your God-given strength, speaking on stage. God's blessed me with that ability. He has not blessed me with the ability of being a handyman. He has not blessed me with the ability with anything technology savvy. I'm still trying to figure out what this AI thing is, and people have been teaching me left and right about it. I still can't figure it out. I don't have those skills, okay? But I'm going to use my skills. I'm going to double down on my strengths because I know that is going to be the bigger vehicle. Now, so I have my system. This is what I would call the system, who you are, your strengths. Now, the process is every little day after that to lead you there. The process are the daily habits. So what are these daily staples that you are working on? Now, if I'm a speaker and a writer, what would that tell you I should probably be doing? I should probably be doubling down on how to become a better storyteller, how to become a better writer. If I'm a writer, I better write. A lot of people say that, hey, well, I'm going to write a book. Well, you're never writing anything ever. So, okay, you got a lot of work to do. You can do it, but you got to start doing it. So you're figuring out what your daily habits, this is your process. So your system, who you are, your God-given strengths, and now you can figure out what these are by, of course, what you're passionate about, but more so what you're gifted at, what you know comes natural to you, but what also other people around you who you can actually trust, who aren't these yes men, are telling you that you're really good at. So that's how you can decipher what it is. I don't say just, hey, go follow your passion. It's not a great idea. I'm very passionate about food, big time foodie, but I'm not just going to eat at sushi spots every single day. Like that's my passion, but that's not doing any good for anybody else. So what are your strengths, your skills, your God-given abilities, plus your daily habits? Now, this is like doing it a lot. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 10 years. It doesn't have to be the 10,000 hours, but it is the deep focused work. I think you can get there faster to become a master at what you do than most people think if you are focused, if you are the deep practice. I'm actually, this is kind of going off topic, but I'm actually writing a book on this of how to take the best of focus and the best of flow state and put those together for the ultimate of what I call flocus. So I've already trademarked that, so don't anybody try to go out there and get it. Anyway, I digress. We have the repetitions of the strength, the daily habits, the process that ultimately will get you to the results. The results are your vision. The results is who you want to be in the future. Now, I say this because we're talking about how to tie the brain and the heart and reach intuition. That all becomes your intuition all in one, but also what you got to know in this whole big picture. So it's a fun mission. It's a fun, exciting journey of growth to be able to improve yourself, to improve others. But at the end of the day, there is no end. There's no I made it moment. Never. There isn't. I was just with Allison Felix last week, who's the most decorated female athlete in track and field history. Literally history.
Yeah, amazing athlete.
Incredible. She finally won her gold medal the last Olympics. And someone there had asked her, hey, how'd you feel after you won that gold medal? Her lifetime dream, her top of the mountain. Her answer, not different at all. There's no end. And that's a good thing. There's no top of the mountain, I made it moment. It's a constant continued growth using your gifts God has given you to better other people around you in service mentality to ultimately show them the kingdom.
And by the way, buy her brand, not Nike. That we won't go down that path. But after what Nike did to her, buy Allison Felix's brand.
Amen. Double down on that.
So you just said some amazing things there, but I got to say that I was distracted by your trademark thing because all I could think of was Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights going, that phrase is trademarked by Ricky Bobby.
You have to be careful, man. It's so funny. Like, you have to be careful with those kind of things because people will just like, oh, that's that sounds cool. And it's kind of a cool thing to say. So I had to make sure after many people told me like, dude, you better trademark that or someone's going to take that.
Yeah. So let's talk about flow for a second, if you don't mind, because you brought it up and it seems to be such an elusive thing for most people. And I think most people think that if I try harder, I'll get flow. The times that I've experienced flow, I can remember a couple different examples, one in football, one in basketball. The basketball one was more of an anomaly and why it sticks out to me because unlike you, I was not a good basketball player. I was a football player playing basketball. And so I was just throwing my body around, kind of natural athlete, but basketball was not my skilled sport. But that day that I experienced flow, I was in a pickup game and I could not miss from anywhere. And everything had slowed down. And again, that's why it sticks out to me so much more is like football was something I trained for, played college, had some success. Like that was more natural to me. That's why the basketball one sticks out more for me. But explain that, because everything had slowed down for me and I couldn't miss that day. And I'm like, how do I get more of that, man? Like I could play anywhere if I could just shoot like that every single day.
Josh, that is a billion-dollar question, and that is what I am trying to figure out for this book, because I have been around the best minds. I was just with George Mumford, who's Kobe and MJ's mental coach, and he had some really good points on flow, and I'll tell you what he said is some of the best that I've heard on it. But yet, there's still no way that you can just tap into flow. The more that you get there, the more that it's accessible. But what he said about Jordan and Kobe and what they did that allowed them to tap into flow. And when I say flow, like, I'll be honest, like, I don't even really know what that means. And this is what I do for a living. And this is what I've been working on for so long, to figure out this formula to help players get into flow. Because sometimes the players that I work with, they'll have it, they'll feel it. And then you think like, oh, well, just do that same thing again. And then you do the same thing again, but you don't have it. So he said Jordan and Kobe would always, every single day in practice, okay? So imagine their ceiling is very high. They would do something to try to push that ceiling a little bit higher. So what it comes back to in like normal terms is stepping into the uncomfortable. I know that's a cliche thing to say is, hey, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Not in the sense of like, yeah, go jump off a cliff daily, but that in your given field, what can you do to just do a little bit extra, to push a little bit harder, a little bit more raise of the ceiling? And so that was, it was the mixture of that, of in practice. Okay, so I'm gonna try to describe this the best I possibly can. So in practice, like when you're in your practice, when you're in your habits, this is when you get very detailed, very nuanced, very like you have to. This is what I'm talking about with this deep focus practice, where you try to get every single rep exactly correct. When I used to work with Kyle Korver, one of the best three-point shooters in NBA history, he would detail every little movement of his body in his shot. And he was a phenomenal shooter, but it gets so detailed. And he would so this is what I learned from him as well. And I think it's somewhere in Do It as one of the tools to do is over speed training. So in practice, he would make it go even faster. He would fly into shots. He would sprint all over the court, go even faster than game speed. So if you overspeed, it's going to make the games actually easier instead of just walking through the motions and the game is just so fast for people. So the overspeed training. So the practice, very detailed, pushing the ceiling a little bit higher than when you get into the game, okay? When you get into the on stage, like when I prepare for speeches, I write everything out. I write a ton of it out, but I don't word for word my talks at all, or even close. But I've prepared so much that when I get up there, or that when an NBA player gets on the court, now it's what's called effortless effort. I've done all the work. All of it's been done. I cannot change anything. I'm not going to be on stage and start thinking of like, well, I got to work on getting my foot turned out and getting a little bit lower here when I talk, or a little bit more pace on this. Or a player, they're not going to improve something in the game. You just let it go. You effortless effort. There's no pressing. You're not trying to go 100%. You're there. You do all that detailed work beforehand and then let the byproduct happen while you're on court. So he said that was the key to what Jordan and Kobe would do. Now that's not formulaic, and that might not work for everyone. And that is still like, okay, well, that's not even a good answer, David. I agree. I don't think it's a great answer. I think it's the best that I've found for now. And I'm interviewing all these Allison Felixes and all these NBA players and then the musicians and actors to see what they have for their answer. And is there something that I can put together that will actually make a great formula for this? But until then, that's all I got for you.
Get to your girl, Caitlin Clark in Iowa. She looks like Steph Curry out there, like the confidence anyhow. It was really exciting to see them play this year.
Yeah, she has unshakable confidence. She's got the swag, the I don't give an F mentality.
Yeah, really cool. Well, I think that was really good stuff that you got, because I don't know that there is an answer either, but I figured I'd ask the person that would know while I had them. The one thing I was thinking about as you said that is that ceiling that you push. I think a lot of people don't understand what that is in a work setting, right? They can see it in a basketball setting. And I'm glad you gave the speech example to over prepare for those things, for those key moments. Is like, typically during your work week, there's 3 big moments, right? Maybe 5 that week, maybe only 1 that week. But do you identify it ahead of time, and do you prepare for it ahead of time, or do you just let it happen? What David's advocating for, and what I'd advocate for, is that if you're you're identifying it ahead of time, preparing for it ahead of time, so that it's effortless effort when you're in it, and you nail that sale, you nail that presentation, you nail that key conversation with a key employee, whatever it may be. First, it needs to be identified. Second, you need to prepare as best as possible for it. Because I've been in those big moments where those conversations, and my intent and my impact missed. So the intent I had for that conversation was positive, uplifting, whatever it might have been. The impact that I had was actually demotivating because of how I said it. And so we got to make sure through preparation that our intent and impact in those key conversations match. And the only way you do that is through preparation. So I love that. And Kobe and MJ are, shining examples of what it looks like, I think, to be in the zone, but they put in those hours and hours and hours of effort and sought experts, what was the gentleman you mentioned?
Oh, George Mumford,
and they sought Tim Grover to exercise the body even further, and breaking that down to make sure that, for Jordan, it was to get stronger, to take the beating from the bad boys. For Kobe, it was to continue to maximize his legacy and try and catch the shadow of Jordan, I think, at that point. But just really, really good stuff. All right, last question before I let you go, my brother. And I didn't prep you for this one. I never prep anyone, so I'm excited to hear what you come up with. What's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that most others would disagree with?
Ooh, I love this, because I love flipping things on their head. Okay, here's the unpopular belief I'm going to go with. I think there's a lot of them, but I will say that everything that you see on these social media, rise and grind, work, push it, all of that kind of stuff. And even like the Goggins and the Jackos, I disagree with that. I don't think you have to do that. I totally don't think you have to. I think it's almost a sense where by success, you also can create your own prison. And I think those guys, and I don't know them personally, so I could be completely wrong, but I think those guys have created their own prison with who they've created themselves to be by being these have to get up at 5, have to go. There's nothing wrong with that. If that is your flow of life that works amazing for you, so be it. But I think that it also can work very well you get up at 8 o'clock, you spend the first hour and a half or you spend the first 30 minutes in prayer, you spend the next hour with your kids. Like, I've got a really good friend, knees over toes guy. Ben Patrick's his name. He's huge on social media. You know what his morning routine is? It's take his kid for a walk, have breakfast with his family, and he posts on social media once a week. Like, that's not what everybody else is saying that you have to do. So I think in this day and age where there's so much pressure to have to be relevant, I'd flip it the other way. Say, try not being relevant. Try coming out with something that's actually going to benefit others instead of regurgitating the same, run your head through a wall like the Goggins type people, and just live a better rhythm of life.
You know what's interesting you bring up Goggins is I recently got to hear him speak at an Arte event, and he actually admitted that you don't have to be like him. So I think he's evolved in his thinking. He's like, here's why I do it and why I do it for myself. Because I think he sees himself now as that guinea pig to see what human performance actually looks like and pushing himself. And also, he deals with a lot of traumas from childhood and stuff of that nature. And what he does to his body helps him with that. But he actually admitted that that. And part of it, I think, was because Andy Frisella is there, and he's the opposite as far as his morning routine. I don't think he gets up till in between 8 or 10 a.m., but he's focused on 5 daily tasks. And if you ask him how his day was, he'll say, I got my shit done. Because he always gets those five tasks done, the 5 most crucial tasks done. He knows what they are ahead of time. He checks them off the list, and he gets them done, and he executes.
Awesome. That's great. And that's really cool that Goggins would say that too, because I think Goggins is awesome to show people what the actual limitations that the mind has is as much as we think it is. So I think he's great in that sense. But to tell people you can be like him, I think that's probably a stretch. So it's cool that he's understanding that.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, cool. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today, brother. I know the audience got a shit ton out of this episode. And so for those of you that aren't watching on video and listening on audio, this is the book, Do It, by David Nurse, now Wall Street Journal bestseller. Make sure you get to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Where else? If they wanted to buy in bulk, I know they can hit you up, right? So where do they hit you up?
Yeah, send me a message at david@davidnurse.com or on Instagram. Really easy to get a hold of. But yeah, that would be amazing. And then if anybody reads it and wants to leave an Amazon review, because apparently Amazon runs the world and those things actually matter, that would be awesome too.
Well, help David out here, because it is a phenomenal book to be had. Just in him explaining the archetypes today, you know it's going to be good and it's going to be helpful to help you do things on a daily basis. And where can they follow you?
Follow me on social media. David Nurse NBA is where most of the social media platforms are, or my website, davidnurse.com, where I do small group high performance coaching for a cool team, and podcast, The David Nurse Show, kind of a revamp going on there. We're going to do some live sessions. We're just breaking down what people's archetypes are, where their struggles are, so you can watch live sessions happen. Or just come out to LA. Hang out.
Yeah, hang out. By the way, on the Instagram, that's David Nurse NBA. Yes. National Basketball Association, think like that, not MBA, getting your master's in business, okay? So just to be clear, because I know when I say my last name, I always have to pronounce the N as in Nancy, because sometimes they'll use the M. So I just want to make sure everyone heard that correctly. Spartans, you know what to do. Share this show. David, I'll see you very soon, but Spartans, remember the good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.